Welcome to All Time Scary. Today we're checking out not 5, but 10 brand new Mandela effects. Everything from non-existent movie scenes and crazy animal changes, to missing art and a massive question mark for number 1. The Hunger Games was a movie released in 2012 and was based off the 2008 book of the same name. The aspect of the film we're talking about today is the Battle Royale competition. Bunch of people usually spread out over a large map fighting to the death until there's only one person remaining. Well, our Hunger Games Mandela Effect has to do with the one scene right before the Hunger Games start. Do you remember when all the participants are standing on their own individual platforms, waiting for the games to start? Do you remember the scene when someone stepped off of the platform early and blew up? Well, if you do remember that, apparently that scene never happened and doesn't exist. Now, I saw the Hunger Games back in the day, and this sounds familiar, but I'm more concerned with what you remember. Some have speculated online that this scene was in a parody movie called The Starving Games, but I've never seen or heard of that movie before, so that doesn't really explain why I have a memory of someone exploding in the Hunger Games movie. Another explanation is that the explosion may have been in the book, but not in the movie. Well, I don't have a copy of the book and I've never read it before, so that doesn't really explain it either. So what do you think? Is this just a weird, seemingly implanted memory, or do you remember the scene as well? Tell me all of your thoughts in the comments below. Next up, we have a spelling Mandela effect. This particular brand of whipped cream is no stranger to the Mandela effect, because people already remember its name's spelling changing previously. Well, it seems Reddi Whip is at it again, so here's my question. How do you spell Reddi Whip? Here's 4 options. Let me know which one you think is the correct spelling of Reddi Whip. Let's see how you fared. The correct spelling of Reddi Whip is Redddiwip. I'm not joking. Google it right now and you'll see it. Is this how you remember it? Or has the Mandela effect struck again? Our next Mandela effect has to do with a series of classic paintings by Cassius Marcellus Coolidge between 1894 and 1910. These paintings are known as dogs playing poker. I'm sure even the most casual art fan will recognize these paintings because they have been displayed in the backgrounds of numerous movies, shows, and quite a few bars. Here is the dogs playing poker Mandela effect. Did any of the dogs ever wear a transparent green visor? You know, this kind of hat. Yes or no? Despite the fact that a ton of people fondly remember these paintings of realistic dogs playing poker, no such painting exists with a dog wearing a transparent green visor. What amazes me most is that I can see the painting in my mind. I'm sure quite a lot of you can as well. So where did we get this visual from? I tried digging deeper into this case and I haven't found anything yet. We all know these paintings were very popular and I'm sure quite a few spin-offs and variations exist. But even then, I'm still unable to locate a painting with a green poker visor. So if anyone has any idea where this comes from, please leave it in the comments below. Together, we can hopefully solve this mystery. The next 2 Mandela effects have to do with changes in animals. Up first is the African gray parrot, also known as the Congo gray parrot. This bird is one of the most intelligent animals, with the mental and emotional capacity of a 5-year-old child. This popular pet can be found all over the world, so it's quite well known. So here's the Mandela effect. What color is the African gray parrot's tail? Is it gray, red, pink, or yellow? If you said gray, well, that's too obvious. The tail's color is actually red and apparently always has been. Is this what you remember? What I find amazing is that the red isn't a dull or diluted shade, it's incredibly vibrant and noticeable. What I do find interesting though is the lack of residue for the African gray parrot's tail being a different color. So what do you remember? Let me know in the comments below. Continuing with our animal trend, this next Mandela effect has to do with horses. With horses being mammals, this means among other things that they have hair all over. Long tails, a thick mane, and fur all over their body. But here's my Mandela effect question for you. Can horses grow mustaches? Yes or no? As unbelievable as it may seem, horses can now grow mustaches. I'm sure all of you knew that, right? Just look at these photos. Amazing. Apparently, some breeds are more prone to growing mustaches than others, but it can naturally occur across the board. Does that sound right to you? And have any of you out there seen a horse with a mustache before? It's Mandela effects like this that make me wish I grew up closer to the country, because I can't for the life of me remember ever seeing a horse with a mustache. I'm trying to visualize it, I just can't. Theodore Roosevelt was the 26th President of the United States and a historical oddity. Coming from wealth, he strangely enough battled corporate monopolies and founded the Progressive Party. Teddy, as he liked to be called, was an eccentric extrovert constantly needing to be the center of attention. The first soldier to fire a shot, the father of the modern-day Navy as well as the nature conservation movement, Teddy was even a Harvard grad school dropout. As President of the United States, Teddy Roosevelt traveled all over the country, meeting and talking to people. One time he was giving a speech and he actually got shot. Instead of ending the speech and getting necessary medical help, he kept going for 45 minutes. The man did it all. He was even blinded in one eye during a boxing match in the White House. Do you think he quit fighting after that? Nope, he switched to jiu-jitsu. All this to say is that Teddy Roosevelt was the type of person to make this Mandela effect sound not rational, but believable. So here is the Mandela effect. Do you remember learning about or hearing about how Teddy Roosevelt boxed a kangaroo? Yes or no? Well, if you did, you weren't alone. Turns out that Teddy Roosevelt never actually boxed a kangaroo. In fact, this weird memory that so many people seem to have, as of now, has no basis in history. It simply doesn't exist. Teddy Roosevelt was known for roughhousing and fighting, as well as leading hunting expeditions all over the world. The idea of him boxing with a kangaroo, it sounds absurd, but if anyone did it, it would have been him. Have you heard of this strange idea before? And if you have, where did it come from? The only residue I was able to find regarding this Mandela effect is a Futurama clip of Teddy Roosevelt's preserved head watching Bender the robot box a kangaroo. Teddy then makes a joke referencing all of this by saying, "Man boxing a kangaroo is a peculiar sight, but a kangaroo boxing a robot? Now I'm afraid you've lost me." This silly clip makes reference to this strange and remembered idea of Roosevelt at some point boxing a kangaroo, but, as I said before, it seemingly didn't happen. So let me know what you think in the comments below, because this one is a strange one and I'd like to get to the bottom of it. The next two Mandela effects are related. Not only are they both spelling Mandela effects, but both relate to the same issues. So without wasting any more of your time, what does the United States government entity DEA stand for? Drug Enforcement blank. What's the word that comes to your mind? Is it administration or is it agency? DEA actually stands for Drug Enforcement Administration. If you were like so many others online, including myself, you knew this acronym as the Drug Enforcement Agency. But history claims now that the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, was formed in 1973 during the Nixon administration and has always been the Drug Enforcement Administration. The Drug Enforcement Agency has never existed, even though there are plenty of newspapers, quotes, and photos out there using the word agency. I find all this pretty weird, but what about you? What do you remember? Continuing with our spelling and drug-related Mandela effects, up next we have the American Anti-Drug Childhood Association called D.A.R.E, as in D.A.R.E. D.A.R.E is a prevention education program designed to prepare elementary school children with the skills to resist social pressures to experiment with tobacco, alcohol, and other drugs. I'm sure some of you watching this were even in the D.A.R.E program. If you were, or even if you just remember it from your childhood, you should know this answer. So here is the Mandela effect. What does D.A.R.E, D-A.R.E, stand for? Is it Drug Alcohol Resistance Education, or is it Drug Abuse Resistance Education? correct answer is drug abuse resistance education. Is that what you remember? Despite the program's educational goals as being to educate kids to resist drugs and alcohol, it seems instead its purpose is to resist drug abuse. I guess using it is fine, it's just don't abuse it, don't do too much. I don't know, I find this very confusing. I could lean either way with this one, but it's interesting nonetheless. I'm excited to hear what you all recall. So here's a Mandela effect that really had me scratching my head. Hopefully it blows your mind as well. Blank and the Chocolate Factory is a well-known classic 1964 book, 1971 movie, and 2005 movie. I used to call all of these Blank and the Chocolate Factory, but now one of them is different than the other two. So that is today's Mandela effect. What is the name of the 1971 musical with Gene Wilder? Is it Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory? Or is it Charlie and the Chocolate Factory? Well, it turns out that the original 1964 book is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. The 1971 movie is called Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. And the 2005 remake is called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It seems like a huge amount of people online had no idea that the two movies were named differently. From what I understand, the assumption online was that all of them were named Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but now that isn't the case. It's strange that the classic movie, who focused on the character Charlie, was called Willy Wonka, and the newer movie, which focused on Willy Wonka, is called Charlie. Perhaps this has always been that way for you, or perhaps this is a shocking and confusing revelation. This one leaves me scratching my head. I really thought they were all called Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, but not anymore. Please let me hear your Willy Wonka versus Charlie fights in the comments below. We're going to talk about that awful and tragic day of September 2001. What started as a bright and sunny morning turned to tragedy in an instant and continued to get worse as the day went on. But strangely enough, we aren't talking about the obvious details regarding that horrible day. We're actually talking about a concurrent event that will hopefully confuse and bewilder some of you. Did you know on September 11th, 2001, New York City was supposed to get hit by a massive hurricane named Hurricane Erin? Here is one of the reported images of this hurricane from back then, and as you can see, it's massive. Does any of this sound familiar? Do any of you remember hearing about a hurricane about to hit New York City on the same day that the towers went down? It had been heading on an impossibly straight line for New York City for 4 to 5 days. The closest it got to landfall was the coast of New York. Supposedly, Hurricane Erin's size was comparable to Hurricane Katrina, and its power was comparable to Hurricane Sandy.
Country kids on this Tuesday, the night of the Latin Grammys. Sunny skies down through Texas, all the way from the bottom of Texas to the top of North Dakota. Little rain to the right of North Dakota. Parts of North Dakota may see a little rain. To the west of the country, no problem. To the east of the country, no problems except down in Florida, a little rain. Other than that, it's kind of quiet around the country. We like quiet. It's quiet. It's too quiet. That's a quick look at the Nashville forecast. Here's an early look at your weather.
Hurricane Erin got so close to hitting that thunder and rain were reported at JFK Airport, Newark Airport, as well as LaGuardia Airport. So why don't any of us remember this massive hurricane hitting New York City? Why did all of the 9/11 photos and videos show bright and sunny skies? Well, apparently right before landfall on the morning of September 11th, 2001, Hurricane Erin did a near unprecedented turn of 150 degrees and just flew off into the ocean. It's as if Hurricane Erin realized that enough tragedy was going to happen that day, it just decided to leave. Do you ever remember hearing about Hurricane Erin, or have you ever heard anyone discuss it ever since? I came across this while doing some research for my last video, and I can't help but be amazed. A hurricane with such insane power and size was about to strike on the same day as America's biggest tragedy, but instead turns around and disappears, only to never be talked about or mentioned again. This one, I don't even know what to say.